So I am a bit of a storyteller. I've co-written 2 books on storytelling. The most recent one is called The Laws of Brand Storytelling. So storytelling is my passion, but social media is my professional background. So I've spent my career working in social media and public relations for startups as well as larger companies. I've been earlier employee at TripAdvisor, and I also ran the social media program for Dunkin' Donuts, which certainly has a very thriving e-commerce side to their business. People really love that brand and love kind of any sort of merchandise that has to go with it. So today I've prepared a presentation to talk about how do we adapt during COVID-19, and also what are some best practices we can start to embrace in social media once this situation is over. So I wanted to start by addressing that we are all adapting to our new normal. And I am originally from Boston, as the Twitter handle Savvy Bostonian would hint at, but I actually have lived in London for the past 5 years. So these images that you're seeing on screen here come from London. So, things like social distancing at my local Tesco supermarket, my face mask that I got a very kind of fancy one actually last year when I went to yeah, isn't it cool? It's from a company called Cambridge Mask Company. It's a retailer out of the UK. I think they do have some e-commerce ties to the US, but they're severely on back order as well. So anybody else who's feeling that right now, I'm sure they could empathize with you. But I had actually bought that back in October for a trip to India, and really came in handy when this situation hit. But also just seeing kind of businesses showing signs of support, saying, a movie theater saying now showing we will be back, as well as the famous Paddington Bear now is also donning a face mask and a heart pin supporting the NHS, which is the National Health Service here. So the point I wanted to make in telling you this story is just like we've all had to adapt to our new normal, whether that's working from home, kind of facing changes in our business, the way that companies communicate also needs to adapt. And just a couple data points here that I wanted to share that really underscore the current situation. We've seen nearly a 5,000% increase in conversations around COVID-19, specifically around unemployment or layoffs between February and March. We've seen over 1,100% increase in messages about quarantine and social distancing. And we've seen over 1,100% increase in conversations about helping others. And these are all conversations that data that Sprout Social pulled from social media. And I think this is incredibly powerful. Just as we have adapted our lives, the things that people are talking about online and, really engaging around has also changed. And the point I want to make here is that we cannot continue with business as usual during COVID-19. And I wanted to share some examples of companies that have had to, potentially got themselves in a little bit of hot water, should we say. One of the example here on the left you will see is from ASOS. It features a chain link kind of fashion face mask. And this was a carousel ad that happened to be running on social media. And the post says, "There's something missing from your wardrobe, and we think it might be these." So inappropriate timing, unlucky for ASOS. Another example comes from Axe, where they were running a TV campaign which featured a man at a basketball game with tons and tons of people around him. And they actually got flack from their customer base for using a TV ad that did not promote social distancing. And then lastly, I know this is an example from a food business, but I had to include it. Let's just all be thankful that we're not KFC and have an iconic ad that's called "It's Finger Lickin' Good" during the time of COVID-19. And this was actually an ad campaign that was running in the UK, but it also is a campaign that has run around the world. And the Advertising Standards Association in the UK got over 150 complaints on this before they told KFC to shut this ad down. So the next piece that I wanted to go into is how do we navigate our new normal as marketers and business owners? And I'm going to share with you 7 of my kind of top tips on how you can navigate the current climate. So the first tip is that we must lead with empathy during this time. And I say this as, I think for me, thinking about how my experience has been during COVID-19, I just feel incredibly grateful and lucky that I'm doing okay, I'm healthy. My inconveniences during this time are very minor. And I think that for those of us that are doing okay, we have to remember that there's a lot of people who really are suffering. There's incredible levels of stress and anxiety during this time. People are coping with loss of loved ones. People are also falling ill. So the point that I wanted to make, and actually that Nora had made also incredibly well in her presentation, is how you communicate now sets such a powerful tone for how your business your business and customers perceive your brand. So how you run your business, how people perceive your brand. And this is where I also think we need to have empathy for one another as business owners, because, I know that many of you are concerned about your businesses. You want to keep your business afloat. You're reliant on the income from your business. So we also need to have empathy for ourselves. But I also think there's a way that you can sell during this time and do it in an empathetic and respectful way. And I'm going to share with you some examples on how you can do that. So the first thing that you want to do is ask yourself a few key questions, and this will help you shape how you structure your content and communication strategy during COVID-19. So questions that I would ask would be, how are your customers doing? I would expect that for every business out there, customers are going to have a range of folks like me that are doing relatively okay and are excited to kind of purchase different goods during this time, whereas others might be struggling a bit more. You also want to ask yourself, how relevant are your products to them at the present? I think what we've heard from a lot of the previous presenters is, many of you are in great e-commerce categories where, clothing that you can wear at home is in high demand. So you're in a good place, but really look through your product line, because maybe, a laptop case is not as relevant at this time as, say, a t-shirt or a coffee mug or a sweatshirt. Also, what lifestyle occasions are your products relevant to? So I'll share some examples on how we can look at people's new normal and how to think about some of those lifestyle occasions in the context of your brand. But spoiler alert, it's a lot of things that are happening at home and promoting social distancing. Also think about what holiday or special occasions are coming up. We all know Mother's Day is coming up this weekend. So, I do think it's okay to celebrate Mother's Day, but think about some of those occasions and think about them in the context of people's new normal. And then the next piece is, when you think about pivoting your content strategy, what could you do to help people during this time? What tips, advice, free programs can you create that will actually help and add value to your customers? And then last, but certainly not least, is there anything that your business can do to help your customers or frontline workers during this time? We're seeing a lot of the market research that I'm seeing and data points are that consumers increasingly want to see businesses giving back during this time. And that can sometimes be tough for us as small business owners. But if you are able to either donate a percentage of your proceeds or donate some of your products if they're relevant to frontline workers, I think that's an incredible thing to do during this time. But I caution that, do it because it's the right thing, not because you want to do marketing around it. The next tip that I want to share is you want to clearly communicate any business or customer service disruptions. I think we've heard this quite a few times already with the past speakers, but I wanted to share a great example of this. So you might remember I gave ASOS a little bit of a ding for keeping an ad running that was potentially insensitive to their customer base, but they've also done some really great things during this time. And one example is they've done a COVID-19 FAQ Instagram story highlight, and it's actually a 14 frame Instagram story highlight. And It starts with a post from their Instagram feed, which talks about kind of the current state with COVID-19. And then it goes through with frequently asked questions that they're getting from their customers. So for example, can I still order from you? And they answer the question in the story. It's super simple. It's super easy to read. There's 14 frames in general. And you also could look at this across other social media channels. So for example, on Twitter or Facebook, you can pin a priority post as well. The third tip that I have is to adjust your visual imagery to reflect our current reality. And we heard another positive mention from Lululemon earlier. And I wanted to also give them a shout out because especially what they're doing on Instagram and other social media channels is fantastic. If you look at their visual imagery before COVID-19, you'll see lots of imagery of group yoga classes, which of course would not be appropriate during this time, as well as a lot of yoga retreat visuals. And if you see on the right, this is what they're currently sharing. So a lot of visuals of people alone doing yoga in the comfort of their home, relaxing with loved ones at home, as well as some very adorable furry friend photos. I guess you can do yoga with your dog, which is fantastic. And I think this is a great way to think about how you pivot that visual imagery to be respectful of our current reality. And I've also made a checklist for you. So, I'm happy to share these slides after the presentation if the Printful team wants to share these, but you can use this. Some things that you want to think about are to ensure that your images stay aligned with social distancing. Now is not the time to show pictures of people in crowded places. So really go through that asset library and make sure maybe you put those on the back burner until after COVID-19 is over. You also want to think about using visuals in a home, a backyard, or a garden setting, also known as the places that we're spending all of our time right now. Also think about shaping visuals around the current lifestyle trends. So think about things like baking, home office, fitness, fashion, so all of those kind of DIY at home styling tips, as well as staying connected. You also can think about leveraging user-generated content from your customers. I think this is a great best practice any time of the year, but just make sure you do so with their permission. Some ways that you can do this are put a call out in the bio of your social media profile where perhaps anyone who uses a specific hashtag, their pictures might be featured on your social media channels, or just simply go straight into the DM and ask them old school. I always recommend giving people credit as well by tagging them in the post as well as in the post caption. And then last but certainly not least, it's really great to share visuals of hope and thanking critical workers, but just be cautious to how much you brand them, because when you're slapping your logo on something or you're putting your products in the imagery, it could come off as trying to profit against the pandemic, and you want to be very cautious to how much you brand those. The fourth tip that I have is to pivot your copy and your tone of voice from selling to lifestyle. Now, I'm sure there's probably someone in a comment right now, because I can't see your comments in my screen, saying, yeah, but we have to sell products. But one of the great things is you actually can sell in a lifestyle way. And I think REI has done a fantastic job of this. Now, REI typically, their hashtag campaign and their content strategy is around opting outside, experiencing the great outdoors. Now, what happens when you're not really supposed to leave the comfort of your home? Well, I'm glad you asked. So REI is showing some fun visuals like the one you see here, where it's a gentleman on his mountain bike, and he's reaching out for what I hope is an empty beer can, but might be a full beer can. And the caption reads, "Friday motivation, what motivates you?" Yes, it's humorous. I do think it's okay to use humor in this situation. I would just advise to be sensitive about the type of humor that you use. But when you look at this post, for me at least, it really makes me smile. It makes me chuckle. We're all kind of having a long week, and that's great. Another example is they're running these hashtag REI challenges where, on a specific time cadence, there's these challenges you can do through social media. One of them was running the tiniest mile. So whether you run from one end of your house to the other, or you do laps around your backyard, it's a great way to kind of get your community involved and share the content. Another example here is REI makes lots of camping equipment, so lots of tents. And I've seen a lot of inspiration for how you could use your tent during this time. So this example here is about transforming your backyard into a star-studded cinema. And what I like about this is it links to a blog post on the REI website where they have all of these different kind of styling tips for a movie night in your tent, whether it's in your living room or your backyard. And that's a great way to link to your products and also sell without doing that kind of hard sell through your posts. Here's also a checklist for tone of voice. And my recommendations here are to only reference COVID-19 when it's related to a business update or shipping delays. So a way to think about this is, say you structured a post where you said, because of COVID-19, we're spending a lot of time at home right now, and I wanted to share with you some great ways you can style, your t-shirts that you have at home. The more that you reference it in that way, it could come off as though you're marketing against COVID-19. So instead of saying because of COVID-19, you might just want to say, hey, here's some great ways you could style your t-shirt at home and, get people involved and end the post in a question to share their favorite ways to style their t-shirts at home. Another tip is to not spread COVID-19 rumors or to repeat unsourced or unverified claims. This is the job of the World Health Organization, your local news outlet, or the local hospital in your area. It's not our job as business owners to kind of repeat that information. Let's leave that to the experts. Another tip is to not go for the hard sell, which we've talked about a lot with product posts or ad copy. There's a lot of ways we can kind of treat this more softly with a lifestyle message that actually will drive people to purchase your products. I also recommend being empathetic, but keeping it simple, positive, and aligned with your brand values. You don't need to completely change your tone of voice for this time. If you are kind of sassy or snarky, you don't have to change your tone of voice, but what I recommend is really adapting it to be more relevant. So that's this last point here. Just be sensitive to the topics covered. And when in doubt, ask friends and family if you think something is insensitive and get their feedback before you post it. And then another tip as well is just to focus on adding value. There actually is a lot of research out there now that people do want to see brands be helpful, inspiring, and motivational. And we all have great opportunity to do that. The fifth tip that I have is to create content and programs that help and add value. And I have some examples here to share with you. So one is Afternoons with Anthro, which is anthropology. And they're doing video content on Instagram that's around styling tips, gift guides, recipes, lots of great lifestyle content that gives people value. They're using a mix of their employees as well as influencers. And I still think now is a great time to leverage influencer marketing if you can afford this as part of your business, or ambassador marketing. I'm seeing a lot of smaller businesses leveraging ambassadors instead of influencers. And I think it's great that if you are an amazing baker, but you happen to make t-shirts and hoodies, why not share that? People want to get great advice no matter where it comes from right now. Another example is from Casper. So Casper makes direct-to-consumer mattresses. They've somehow made mattresses cool on social media, and they've done it by evangelizing sleep. And they're funny about it, but they tackle more serious topics like mindfulness, wellness, as well as things that are barriers to us having great sleep. And they're doing an Instagram live series with experts around how to sleep during uncertain times. Another example comes from Tom's. Now, you might have heard of Tom's shoes. They are the one-for-one company. So for every pair of shoes that you buy, they give a pair of shoes to a child in need. But during COVID-19, they've actually set up a COVID-19 global giving fund. And now for every $3 they make, they're going to donate $1 to the global giving fund for COVID-19. And that goes to helping different charities and nonprofits that are impacted during this time. And then another great tip comes from H&M. So H&M is running a hashtag campaign called At Home with H&M. And they do this on Instagram as well as other social media channels. And you can see here, I love how creative they are with daily fashion kind of style themes. So they challenge their audience to do, mirror selfies, stripe up your life, red carpet realness at home, curtain chameleon, or kitchen catwalk. I mean, if you're hashtag bored in the house, these are fun things to do and could actually even be a great way for you maybe to attention hack a little bit for your business, because if you have some H&M garments at home, why not pair this with one of your t-shirts and maybe see if you could bake it into the Instagram story feed as well. So the sixth tip that I have is to tell your story on your brand and your personal channels. So we talked a little bit about how I am a very passionate brand storyteller. I think every company has a story to tell and every individual has a story to tell. And one small business that I think does an incredible job is called Seek and Swoon. You can follow them on social media. I think especially on Instagram, they do a great job. It's founded by a woman out of Portland, Oregon named Hala. So her name, it sounds like Yala, but it's Hala, as you can see here in her caption. And something that she does every so often is when she starts to see a big influx of new followers, she does a post on the Seek and Swoon Instagram channel introducing herself and shares the backstory of how Seek and Swoon was founded, which I think is a really awesome idea as an ongoing content piece for your channels, because beyond every small business is a business owner and they have a story behind why they started their business. And they also have stories behind their different products. And I also want to make the point here that you should do it on your business account, but also don't discount your personal channels, because your friends and family are excited about what you're up to. And, I say this as someone who's moved to London. I've lived in London for the past 5 years, and I actually think my personal social media channels are more important than ever, because people say to me, well, what are you doing professionally now? So having some of those professional updates and telling the story of what you're doing is really great. And I bet you your friends and family also really want to buy from you as well. So what kind of stories can you tell as a business owner? Well, I always recommend starting with your why. Why did you start a business in the first place? We always have a great story behind this. What's the inspiration behind your designs? Is this something that your mom always said to you, or is like your famous tagline? What's the story behind where that happened? Like, for example, my dad always says, you are the hero of your own story. I mean, no wonder I'm passionate about storytelling, right? But my dad always said that. That's not an original quote, right? But say I made merchandise around that, I would want to tell the story of how my dad always said that growing up. What have you learned as a business owner? Everyone has gone through kind of ups and downs and all of these crazy, funny moments, these viral wins. Tell those stories. Especially when I was working for Dunkin' Donuts, I did all of the crazy cool, like I got to live tweet from a red carpet. We challenged Jimmy Fallon to dance off on Twitter. I got to do all of these crazy cool things as my business. So even if you're not challenging celebrities to a dance off on social media, I guarantee that you've got some funny stories or interesting stories in there that you can tell. What about lifestyle stories? How are you spending your time? What are you up to? What is adding value, as well as some of those funny moments? And then last but not least, what about your customers? What are those stories from your customers? How are they using your products? And I want to share with you a great example from Seek and Swoon, because I think they do a really great job using user-generated content for storytelling. So here's an example here with the most adorable little girl in a pink tutu, and Seek and Swoon makes beautiful blankets and throws. So you can see their blankets here and here. And the caption reads, "Quarantine and this cutie has me evaluating the benefits of wearing a tutu around the house. Desperate times call for desperate measures." And they give an attribution to the customer who posted this. I love this. It's aligned with the story of their brand. Now, granted, they make, different kind of throw blankets. So their brand is very relevant during this time, but I love how human this is. And then another example here is, we're trying to recognize 3 things every day that we appreciate. Today's are naps, fur babies, and cozy blankets. What are your 3 for the day? So I think this is a great way to also bring in some of those inspirational messaging that we spoke about earlier. So my 7th and last tip, so hopefully I'm not running too over on time here, is to experiment with new platforms and content types. I think that now that we're all spending more time at home, And hopefully we're getting maybe bitten by the creative bug. Now is a time to experiment with new channels. If you've ever wanted to launch a podcast, learn how to make better videos for YouTube, or my new favorite social media channel, TikTok. If you've ever wanted to experiment with these channels, I think now is the time, because what you can do is spend time, really absorbing content on these channels, Google searching how to create content for these channels, learning and absorbing, kind of other business content that you think is interesting. And I wanted to expand a little bit on TikTok specifically. So I've opened 2 channels on TikTok, one for Jessica Gioglio, which is business content, and then one for Savvy Bostonian, which is tied to my lifestyle blog. And I'm just having so much fun with it. The organic virality of TikTok is amazing. And I think my best video so far has over 3,500 views, which is probably kind of on the small side, but you're seeing some people open TikTok accounts and get tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of views, which is pretty crazy. And I've actually had the opportunity to meet with TikTok for some of the work that I do. And, through their ad solutions, they do have direct links to e-commerce, but I do think at some point there's going to be easier ways to link to content. But what's great is you can link to your Instagram or to your YouTube. So it's a great way to actually convert people there. And I wanted to share just some examples of YouTubers that I've been following that I've been getting value out of. So Dina Rodriguez is a big Printful. She has her own Printful shop, and she also shares a lot of tips around Printful on her channel. So I wanted to give her a shout out. Virginia Kerr does awesome video tips for social media. And I think the way she structures her videos is really awesome. John is a fellow Bostonian who does amazing travel content. But what I love about him is he does a lot of like top 5 listicle content. So he'll be like top 5 kind of countries in Europe that are underrated to go to. And he uses the green screen feature of TikTok in a really cool way, which could be inspirational for you. And then Chriselle Lim is a really amazing fashion influencer. And she has a really great mix of styling content as well as just really funny content. She does a whole series called Your Rich Mom, which is really funny and tongue in cheek. And I think it could be great inspo for all kind of the fashion brands out there. And I've just included here some quick tips of content that could work on TikTok. I want to make the point here that, you don't have to be a good dancer to be on TikTok. I don't dance on TikTok. I'm horrible at dancing, but there's a lot of other ways that you could leverage this content. And I encourage you to consume a lot of content on TikTok so you can kind of start to see what works really well. So wrapping up here, because I think I'm over time, you want to make sure that you lead with empathy during COVID-19. Make sure to clearly communicate any business or service disruptions. Social media is a great place to do that by pinning posts or using your Instagram story highlights. Make sure to adapt your copy, your tone, your creative to be sensitive to our current reality. Everyone is going through something different at this time. People have good days and bad days. And, I think a tip that I can offer as well is, actually spend some time, checking out your customers. Maybe use Instagram as an example. Look at their Instagram stories. See what they're going through. It's a really good way, to do some market research, but also just to really be attuned to what they're going through and what types of things they're up to. Also ask yourself, what can you do for your customers? How can you add value? And then last but not least, let's see this time as an opportunity as well. Now is the time to test and learn with new content, new platforms, learn new skills. Just make sure it adds value. So thank you so much. I'm happy to take some questions if we have some time for them.
Jessica, thank you so much. So many great examples and a lot of fun examples too. I mean, the tiniest mile one, that was so cute, like really terrific stuff. Who knew? And again, a very positive, insightful, enlightening presentation. So good to get some positivity out of these challenging times. Before I ask you one question, maybe we had a request actually. Could you please go back to the ASOS slide where you had the what do you call those Instagram stories? That was a request from someone. Somebody really wanted to take a look.
Let me pull that up. I'll show you. I assume they probably want to see the one that has.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And then one quick question, one quick tip for someone who's just starting out with their brand on social media. again, how to dive in, how to not get scared, what to post, what to expect, like how to just go.
How to just go. Well, here's the thing is, I think people put a lot of pressure on themselves to be perfect on social media. If you're just starting, now is the time to test and learn. So I would recommend, number one, be consistent. So the way social media algorithms works is they do reward consistency. So it's not good to do like one post on a Monday and then wait 2 weeks to post again. I recommend trying to aim aspirationally. If you can do a post a day, that would be great. And the way to take some pressure off of yourself is to create some content ahead of time, so you're not like scrambling every day to have something to post. So I would recommend that. I think another great thing you can do is just think about, documenting your journey a bit. So if you're at home and you're kind of going through some of these things day to day, and you have kind of certain merchandise that you create, how can you integrate that into your day to day? So if you make coffee mugs, can you start using just some Instagram stories to document your day? So, capturing content with your products throughout the day is a really great way to build an asset library. So when you make your coffee or your tea in the morning, take a picture with your coffee mug. If you're getting dressed for the day, take a picture with your great, t-shirt or your hoodie that you're wearing. If you're out and about, maybe take some pictures with the face mask that you have. So really thinking about how you can document, and kind of don't be afraid to put your personal face on it in this time, because you're not maybe going to be able to do like actual photo shoots with models or friends and family that you've corralled in to do that. But you also can maybe send some merchandise to friends and family and ask them to do the same. So I would say, again, to summarize, be consistent, try and aim for a post a day. Don't put so much pressure to be perfect. Test, different images and videos and stories, and really do a little bit of research on the nuances of each social media channel. Because, for example, things like Instagram, you can either put up to 30 hashtags in your caption or the first comment. I really recommend, I like the first comment because I think it junks up your copy in your bio. But everyone is different, has different opinion on that. So start to think about some of those tactics you can test. And, again, don't get discouraged if you don't have a huge following overnight. I think it takes a lot of patience just to start slowly and start to see what works.
Thank you. Very good. So to the person who asked this, I hope you took notes. So thank you very much, Jessica, for that.